Hey guys, in this week's episode, we are talking about Baz Luhrmann's Elvis. But before that, we're talking Lord of the Rings of Power, and our most anticipated movies for the fall of 2022. So, join us!
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast powered by Cinelinx. My name is Justin, and with me as always is the man who likes talking about all these movies we talk about on the show because they are like movies. Mike, how you doing?
Yeah, well, the movies are like movies. It just feels like a movie, you know?
Yeah, they feel like movies and therefore they are good.
I wonder, I'm sure people will get that.
I hope so. Now. Maybe we can explain in a second. Or before we do that, if we are going to explain it, but I just apologize. My voice is a little shaky and off today, so if my voice cracks...
That was pretty offensive to me, so thank you for apologizing.
Yeah. I mean, to apologize to you and the listener, but I'm going to do my best to get through this with minimal cracking and minimal voice loss.
Yeah, not good so far. I heard that.
Shh.
All right, if this is your first time listening, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March, where we talk about film and TV news, or just the movies and TV that we have been watching personally. Then we move into our feature review. This week, like I said at the top of the show, we're discussing Baz Luhrmann's Elvis, which has been out for a minute, but we're just catching up with it on the show officially here.
That's right. And also here on the Casual Cinecast, every other episode, or just about every other episode, we put out a Casually Criterion episode. In these episodes, listeners choose a film from the Criterion Collection for us to review by voting in a poll that we put out on our Twitter account. So look forward to our next Criterion poll and next episode. Our last episode was on The Gunfighter, starring Gregory Peck, which is a great, really fun episode. And we have plenty of Criterion Collection episodes in our back catalog. Mike, tell them what won the latest poll and what will be our next episode.
Yeah, so we each chose a noir-themed film, and we'll see. I chose Asphalt Jungle, which lost with 27.8%. Justin chose Rafifi, which also lost with the same amount of percentage. And then Chris won with Akira Kurosawa's High and Low, with 44.4%. So our next Casually Criterion will be High and Low.
Which is exciting, because I have not seen that movie in a long time, and I've only seen it once.
I've seen it twice, but both times, it's been well over 10 years, basically, since I've seen it.
Gotcha. Well, cool. If you want to vote in our next poll, follow us on Twitter at Casual Cinecast. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Casual Cinecast as well, but Twitter is the best place to follow us. It's pretty much the only place we're active. It's where we put the polls, like I said. And if you want to send us any questions about the movies we're reviewing or suggestions, anything at all, send social media or send messages to any of those social media accounts, or send a message to casualcinemedia at gmail.com. And of course, if you haven't done so already, you like the show, you want to help other people find it, go into iTunes, go into your whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, and give us a 5-star review or a 10-star review, whatever.
Yeah. Give us a 5-star review and thank Justin for being a trooper with talking through his vocal problems he's having today.
Yeah. You're welcome.
All right. I think with that, we could just get on with it, get into the news on the march and start talking about stuff. What do you say?
I say let's go.
Let's go.
News on the march.
All right, we're here in News on the March. So
yes, we are.
Mike, kick us off with our first item on the agenda.
All right. So as we are recording this, there have been 2 episodes of Lord of the Rings of Power that have been put on Amazon right now. I think I had a 2-episode premiere. The next episode should be, I think, Thursday evening. So probably by the time you're listening to this, the 3rd episode will be out. Mm-hmm. But right now, just the first 2 of this 8-episode season that reportedly cost $1 billion. So, full disclosure right up front, I am not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. I don't dislike them. I've never read the books, and I haven't seen the last 2 movies since theaters. I didn't like the Hobbit movies. So that's kind of where I'm coming down on this. I have no dog in this race or whatever, horse in this race, whatever the dog in this fight, whatever the expression is with dogs and horses and fighting and racing. But basically, I'm impartial to Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And so my main curiosity with this series was, what does $1 billion spread over 8 episodes look like?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the mindset I went into this thing with. So I'll say right up front, these episodes look amazing.
Yeah.
They look incredible. Just as good at, probably better than the Hobbit movies, because the Hobbit movies I think look like a CGI mess.
Right.
But really good looking. Just as good looking as the original Lord of the Rings trilogy looked. Maybe better in some places just because it's 2022 and not 2003 anymore.
Yeah. Technology has advanced.
Right, yeah. That said, these first 2 episodes, I don't want to say I was confused. But as someone who is not up on Lord of the Rings, like in the lore, it was very dense.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much the second episode, but definitely the first episode. They're grazing over a lot of stuff, and that has mixed results with me. I don't dislike this series by any stretch of the imagination, and I will keep watching. That said, I'm not exactly hooked. I think the main performance from the actress playing Galadriel, whose name escapes me at the moment, but she's great. I think she's a really great presence throughout this show, and I think she does a pretty good job of seeming like a younger Cate Blanchett, right? She's got that regal, I don't know, that regalness about her. And by the way, her name's Morfydd Clark.
Yeah.
Morfydd Clark. I'm not sure how you say that first name. No disrespect intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's great. The whole cast is pretty strong.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think like everyone's really good. They're not, what are they, proud feet, or they're not quite hobbits.
They're like pre-hobbits, I guess. I don't know if they tie into and eventually become the hobbits, or if they're just a different.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Which again goes to your point of us not knowing the lore very much, because I'm in pretty much the same boat about Lord of the Rings that you are. But I find our 2 like sort of main girls, and they're really charming.
Definitely, yeah,
and watchable.
Yeah, for sure. The cast is great. I think if I can get into this, it will be through the character-based stuff. Like, I think episode 2 is much stronger than episode 1, in my opinion, in that regard. Because episode 1, it like for the first 30 minutes or so, it's like the beginning 10 minutes of the Fellowship of the Ring. It's just like Galadriel talking about stuff and like what's going on. And like what's been happening, and it's essentially like a montage that takes place over centuries of these elves like hunting down Sauron. And that's kind of fun, right? As someone who's only seen the movies and doesn't really know what Sauron looks like it's fun, the idea that he's still the villain of this show, and knowing eventually what he becomes, and that's pretty cool, I guess. But that said, more character work would be nice for me in this show, like quiet times where you get to know characters and all that, because that's really going to be my gateway into this thing, because it's so dense in the lore in the first episode.
Yeah.
That I don't know, my eyes kind of glazed over, and I was like, oh my, I don't know what I'm to take from this, you know?
Yeah. The first episode, I think, while it grabbed me less because I think it dove into less, but like the beginning of it seemed so fast paced. I was like, man, this show is moving and going through a lot of info and a lot of history fast.
Yeah,
setting this up, but the second one kind of, I think, slows down. You know, like
sure.
I said, the Proudfoot, is that what they're called? Proudfoot?
I don't know, man. Yeah,
something. I don't know. Whatever. The little Hobbit people, I thought the more time we spent with them, the more I liked them, and there's a scene with Elrond and his dwarf friend, where they kind of have a rivalry, and they finally have it out about it, and like, you know, you spend a lot of time wondering what the beef is between them and why they hate each other, and it's a little bit petty. There's some petty aspects to it, or
sure, yeah.
Or that seem like smaller than the world of Lord of the Rings, anyways. So like, it was kind of really fun and a little charming whenever they finally had out their argument.
Yeah,
that was fun.
And again, the prosthetics, the makeup, all of this looked great. It looks just like as seamless, like with like the short size perspective differences, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's incredible. Like there's one scene in the second episode where one of our main characters, who plays a Hobbit-esque person, right?
Yeah.
She's approaching like a crater where like a dude's laying in the middle of a crater, like a regular sized man. And the perspective difference looked great. You know, like there's not a moment where I'm like, ooh, this looks weird, you know?
Yeah.
And so anyways, the production value's all there. I think it remains to be seen whether or not the season as a whole will be good. I know it's kind of controversial, but the thing is, it's hard to tell what general audiences are actually feeling about this show because of the uproar around the racial elements of the cast, right? Like they add a lot more people of color into the cast, and unfortunately, just like with any time this happens, it seems like there's review bombing and complaining, and it kind of makes it hard to tell where valid criticism ends and begins in the greater conversation. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, strangely, it's one of the things that made me more inclined to give this show a shot, you know, because I want it to be successful and I want it to be good, just because like there are people complaining about petty stuff and
right. Yeah. Well, it's like, I understand not liking it if you're a Lord of the Rings expert and they do something with the lore or whatever, that's completely different, et cetera, yada, yada. I understand. You know, I've had my fandoms where like I get attached to lore and I don't like when things get changed.
Yeah, of course.
But it's like, if you're not liking it for the reasons of like, oh, there's people of color in Middle Earth now, then it's just like, yeah, I kind of want the show to be successful just to like infuriate these people.
Yeah. And to make more seasons and more episodes and cast more people of different backgrounds and diversity.
Oh, yeah.
So, like,
yeah. So I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I understand where people are coming from because a lot of these like fantasy genres, like they have like geographical references based on real life a lot of times. So you want certain people, you want certain things to like look and feel like they were maybe intended by the author. But at the same time, you could just, I don't know, this isn't really lore breaking, adding people of color into things. People of color have been around.
Yeah.
And throughout history, it's just, you know, they're not often talked about. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like these people don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to that.
Right. It's no harm, no foul, in my opinion, right? Like you're not fundamentally, you know, changing anything at all. It's literally just like the color of someone's skin, and it's like,
right,
just move on and get over it. But I understand what you mean, that like it's hard to judge the reaction because it's been review bombed, right?
Yeah, like they had to put a 3-day hold on reviews on Amazon for that reason, you know. And the same thing happened with the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, right? It's like there are plenty of people who may have beef with the show or these shows, and like they're valid, right? They're valid criticisms, like but then you have the racial element, and then whenever someone comes out and it's like, hey, don't be racist, then you have the people stepping up and being like, oh, so now any valid criticism is just shot down as us being racist. That narrative is exhausting to me as well.
Right.
It's like, you know who you are. Don't, you know what I mean? Like whenever, like I found a lot of that complaint during the Obi-Wan Kenobi show where people were like, Disney's trying to like label us as racist for having problems with the show. And it's like, no, they specifically said, don't choose to be racist.
Yeah.
They're not saying don't criticize. So A lot of these people are kind of like bad faith elements where like they'll put a complaint and they'll label something like writing or directing as real bad. But really their anger is politically fueled, you know?
Yeah. Well, as like an objective person, and not to move away from like the like racial backlash conversation too much, but like
just had to bring it up, you know?
Yeah. But like, objectively speaking, as someone who isn't a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, didn't really care about the Hobbit movies at all, never read the books, I couldn't see anything really that would make me understand why someone was a fan of the movies and isn't a fan of the show. Like, they're so on par with each other.
Yeah, tonally speaking, they fit right in with each other.
Yeah. So, and like in some cases they look better. I mean, you've said it, the show looks great. And I'm actually, like, there's been several times that I've been floored by some of the cinematography. I thought it looked incredible. You know, when Galadriel's on the boat going towards the, the promised land.
Like elf heaven or whatever.
Yeah. When she's going towards that, I thought that looked really great. And
it looked like a biblical painting, you know, like in a lot of the ways, like the way they were standing and posing. It's like, it looks good.
Golden light.
Yeah.
And there's another scene where a couple of the characters are going through like a burned down, abandoned village.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like some shots through like the wreckage and stuff. And there's a shot that kind of directly references a movie I haven't seen, but I've seen the cover a lot because I own it and just haven't watched it yet. But Tarkovsky's Ivan's Childhood.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you know the cover I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know the cover and I even know the scene, but that's not what entered my brain during that scene. But that's good. That's a good connection.
There's a shot it's a direct reference. I'm pretty sure. Like, it couldn't, if it happened by mistake, that's insane. That's like the most wild of coincidences. But there's just some that whole scene, really, they did a lot to me that looked incredible. But
I think we both have given it thumbs up on the production scale and the acting and the casting and all that stuff. But as someone who's not into Lord of the Rings, are you hooked? Are you going to keep watching?
I think I am. And the main thing, like the one aspect that really makes me super interested of what's going on and what I might see next, because I have no idea what it is the pre-Hobbit people and the man who like landed via the meteor thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on with that, and everything that's happening is really interesting. You know, I really enjoyed the scene in the second episode with like the fireflies. I thought looked really cool. It was just like that piqued my interest, and I think wanting to know more about that story is what's hooking me, if anything.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at too. I'm definitely going to finish the season, no matter what. That said, I'm not eagerly anticipating the next episode. Like, it'll arrive when it arrives. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'll watch it, but it's not like, it's not a show that like I'm like chomping at the bit for more, you know?
Right.
I think that's kind of where I've come down.
Yeah. I'll watch it when I get around to it.
Sure.
Basically, I'm not going to watch it on Sunday night or Thursday nights whenever the new episode drops.
Right. Yeah. Like right after I get off work on Sundays, it's always like I'm waiting for House of the Dragon, right? It's like I'm not like eagerly counting down the minutes for this one, but I am hoping it stays good. And that's kind of where I come down right now. It's like it's a solid start and it definitely feels like Lord of the Rings,
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about this before we move on?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. So next, I think both of us are in the middle of watching things and don't really have anything super interesting to add on to News on the March. So we decided to do our most anticipated movies coming out for the back half of this year in 2022.
Yeah. And it kind of coincides with a Cinelinx article that I put my choices on.
Usually I do that, but I guess I missed it this year.
Yeah. Yeah, usually we're all on there, but yeah. I think the article dropped as we're recording this, but So it will have been out for a few days. But anyways, you can check that out if you want more recommendations from other people.
Yeah, I'm bummed I didn't participate this year. I usually like to do that.
Yeah. Well, I guess, do you want to kick us off then?
Sure. Are we each choosing 3? Does that sound like the right number?
Say let's do 3.
Okay, I will. Okay. All right, so this is not going to be in any kind of order, so don't take this as my 3rd most anticipated. I'm just picking movies at random here. But I'm going to get this out here because it is a movie that I think you might probably also have.
Yeah.
And that is Avatar: The Way of Water.
Oh, no, I don't have this one, but
coming in December.
Close.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I am not the biggest Avatar fan. I've seen it 1.5 times. I saw it in theaters. I enjoyed it. I started watching it when it came out on Blu-ray and did not finish it. Not because I don't like it, but, just because, I don't know. I just didn't. And I haven't gone back to it. And I know there's like a lot of joking about Avatar, right? Like the lack of cultural relevance and no one remembers it and no one watches it or thinks about it or talks about it anymore or whatever. I understand all of that, and I'm not saying that I don't have a similar thought process, but this is James Cameron. And James Cameron hasn't done a film since the first Avatar. And you just don't sleep on James Cameron. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the man, even when he's doing movies that aren't my cup of tea, like, does he know how to make a bad movie? Like, everything just shines through as like a man who cares about the craft of making movies. And with all the special effects work that had to go into creating these Avatar sequels and inventing technology that didn't exist yet and all that stuff, I'm just very excited to see what he comes up with. Even though, personally, like, I don't care about the characters that we're following in Avatar. Like, I have no emotional connection to them whatsoever. I don't remember their names, but I don't care. I'm willing to just let James Cameron show me something, show me what he's been up to for, over a decade. Yeah,
and I think as someone who went into the first Avatar, not quite cynically, but, it was a 3D movie, and at the time I was kind of like, 3D, I've seen it,
Yeah.
Big deal. And having that movie sort of floor me in how good the 3D was and how good it looked, and like, just how enjoyable of a ride it was, despite the movie's shortcomings. Like, it's just entertaining stuff, right? So I can't be cynical about this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know that it's going to make $1 billion like the first one did, and I don't know what Disney and James Cameron are expecting at this point. But I am excited to see how this goes.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah. Okay, what about you? Number 3.
All right, so number 3 is Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
Ah, okay. All right.
I don't think this one's coming to theaters. I think it's coming straight to Peacock. I think it is.
Okay. Interesting.
And I don't really know who directed this, but I have been a big Weird Al fan for pretty much my whole life, as long as I can remember.
Yeah. I think a lot of kids from the 90s are at least a passing Weird Al fan.
Yeah. And I saw him live actually earlier this year, back in May, for the first time ever. And that was really fun. So, and it kind of reignited, my love for him, or love for some of his music, at least from like a nostalgia perspective. Because he's not someone I listen to on a regular basis, but when I saw the opportunity to go to a concert, I thought, yeah, why not? Yeah. And so I've been revisiting him a little bit lately. So it's kind of like serendipitous timing that this film is coming out. And it looks bizarre. It looks kind of like almost a parody of the biopic, which is...
Yeah. How appropriate considering what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So, it's... A biopic normally wouldn't be very high on my radar, but I think they're going to do some weird stuff with this. And it has Daniel Radcliffe as Weird Al. And I feel like Daniel Radcliffe, since being done with Harry Potter, has really mostly chosen things that are, at the very least, interesting choices that are kind of swinging for the fences or taking some big swings and some big bold style choices, you know? So that gives me hope too.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I just realized that Evan Rachel Wood is playing Madonna.
I didn't know that's who she was playing. I knew she was in it.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
That's funny.
I can't imagine that Madonna has a huge presence in the Weird Al story, but then again, I don't know. I don't know about Weird Al's personal life.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure. I mean, I know that the Like a Virgin, right, is one of his bigger songs. The Like a Surgeon parody. So
that's true.
Imagine that's where she's playing in. Maybe
Probably
some beef there. I know his most infamous beef is with Coolio in trying to do Amish Paradise and his parody infamous, of Gangsta's Paradise, right?
He didn't know that Coolio didn't want him to spoof such a sacred, serious topic.
Mm-hmm. So, anyways, I hope that's covered in here. I'm excited.
Yeah. I wonder if they'll if anyone's playing Coolio. Anyway, yeah, I agree. That's a good choice. That wasn't on my radar. I mean, I know about it, but just didn't think about it beyond that. I knew it existed.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, what's your next one?
All right. So my next one is a film from the Irish filmmaker / playwright Martin McDonagh. McDonagh. I think that's how you say it.
Close
but
enough.
Anyway. He most recently did 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri. Most famously, at least in my brain, is he did In Bruges. And that is my favorite film of his. And this new film is the same team up, right? You get Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. And this is a movie called The Banshees of Inisherin.
Yeah.
And that excites me. I don't really know anything else about it, but
have you not seen a trailer?
No.
Oh, okay. I saw it. I saw the trailer ahead of 3,000 Years of Longing.
Oh yeah, how'd that go?
I thought it looked interesting. It looked different. A lot more in Bruges than 3 Billboards. I think. I mean, obviously it has those two and is set in like a similar place with them having similar accents and. Whatnot.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's seen the movie yet, but I feel like word of mouth says it's the most In Bruges-y one yet since In Bruges.
More In Bruges than In Bruges?
I don't know if you can get more In Bruges than In Bruges, but
that seems
anything that's trying to compare itself to In Bruges, I'm interested in.
Yeah, it seems like a actual literal impossibility to be more
yes, it does.
In Bruges than In Bruges.
But I don't know. Great cast.
Cool.
I think that certain actors can really make his dialogue work. Kind of like Tarantino. It's like not every actor can always sell this writer's dialogue. But whenever you get someone in there who can, like Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, the results can be very rewarding, I think.
Yeah,
so,
I won't tell you much or tell you the plot or anything, just maybe it seems like you don't want to know or whatever, but the vibe that I get is that it's so bizarre and weird that if it wasn't this team of 3, if this was like a different director and different actors with the same thing, I would be skeptical about whether or not this even seemed interesting.
Okay. Fair enough.
It seems like it's going to lean heavily on them. And if it's a great film, it's going to be because of their relationship and their chemistry together as a trio.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Number 2 for you. What you got?
All right. Well, continuing in the world of weird, maybe slightly under the radar comedies, Clerks 3 is coming out in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, I don't know when it's coming out, but it's
sometime.
I know it exists and it's coming out.
Yeah, sometime in September. But I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. I know his movies aren't perfect, especially the more recent stuff. But like, just growing up, I would go to the video store and rent all of the Jay and Silent Bob movies over a weekend and just watch them all on repeat.
Yeah, I went through a phase, in middle school to early high school where I was really into Kevin Smith movies as well.
Yeah.
I watched Dogma the other day. That movie's still good.
So did I, actually. This weekend, like 3 or 4 days ago.
Yeah.
I watched it.
I think Dogma's his best movie.
I think so too. At least in terms of just like pure moviness. I have an affinity for movies that take place in like a single day and characters standing around talking about stuff for the entire movie. So things like Clerks and Mallrats and Clerks 2 scratch a particular itch for me,
Yeah.
that Dogma doesn't, but probably Dogma is overall. It's really good. It's a lot deeper, I think.
Sure. I think Kevin Smith in the 90s, whenever he used to try to dive into like deeper stuff, I always liked it whenever he would do that. Like, we reviewed Chasing Amy on the podcast, and I guess I'd forgotten how, like, you could see Kevin Smith growing up as he's writing. You know what I mean? Like, you could see him like becoming more emotionally mature and intelligent through these scripts in like, like I think Chasing Amy and Dogma in particular.
Yeah.
I wish he would still make movies like that,
I do too. And he made Red State, right? Which
I think that was a good attempt. And then he did Tusk, which I never saw.
Me neither. But it seems like, at least in regards to the Jay and Silent Bob universe, like those movies that fall into that, he got more into like, okay, I've made my serious-ish movie with Dogma and Chasing Amy as well. Mm-hmm. And now I'm kind of concerned with just taking these characters I love and making something that's super fun to make and shoot, even if it doesn't end up being the greatest movie.
Sure.
And that's kind of contagious to me. Like I feel the love for the characters and for just making a silly movie. Yeah. Especially starting with Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and on. And I just finished our rewatch. Well, we kind of did out of order, but Dogma caught us up all the way to the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, which is next. And then we'll be fully ready for Clerks 3.
Oh, I forgot about that reboot. I even saw that reboot, and I kind of forgot about it till just now.
Yeah. It's not it's not crucial cinema that you should make room in your head to remember for the rest of your life. But it's fun. I look forward to revisiting it, to be honest.
Sure.
And then Clerks 3. So, yeah. That was my second, so I think we're on to your third and final, right?
Yes. Okay, so I'm actually looking for a release date on this one. I don't know that it has one, so maybe look on your end, correct me if I'm wrong, but The Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. IMDb has it listed as 2022, but I don't think we've gotten a full trailer yet, so I'm kind of skeptical that might happen, but right now, it's Glass Onion, which is like the sequel to Knives Out, continuing Daniel Craig's Detective, directed and written by Rian Johnson. I really enjoyed the first Knives Out. I felt like that was a movie that it's hard to believe got made, and was so thankful that it was a hit, because it's an ensemble cast of actors. It's not a franchise. Well, I guess it is now, but
yeah.
But it's like, it's a movie for adults. It's a comedy for adults. I can't imagine this being like a hit with high schoolers,
Right.
Or like kids that, grew up on the MCU or whatever. But the idea that there's still a market for a movie like this, like a grown-up murder mystery comedy with like an ensemble cast of just really great actors, just chewing into their, their characters and really trying to make an impression. And I don't know, like, it feels like a lot of movies like that maybe existed at one time, but they haven't in quite some time because of the budget that is required to bring this many big actors together. And there's no explosions. There's no hook, where you're going to make $1 billion at the box office. So The idea that this movie exists and that they're making a franchise out of this, and it's new, it's not just rehashes of Murder on the Orient Express again. It's right. It's pushing the genre forward and keeping it alive. And I don't know. I just don't want to, like, a lot of the movies that I look forward to these days are just movies that, like, I know that they're a dying breed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I really liked The Revenant a few years back, not because it was great cinema, but because when is a $200 million movie like that going to exist again? Mm-hmm. And each of these kinds of movies that comes out now, where it's like a big, bold take or something that costs a lot of money on Netflix's dime or whatever, I just don't want to. I don't want to write those off, because I know that there's only a matter of time before that no one's taking a gamble on things like this. Yeah,
for sure. And I think it being on Netflix, I guess, so that might be the place where these things exist. Because as far as I understand, this is going to be one that's like straight to Netflix. Although I'm sure it'll have some sort of
I think they'll do a
release.
limited theatrical release for award season purposes.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I'm with you. I think this is really fun. I mean, I put this on my article, my list for Cinelinks, and literally I put Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery. More Benoit Blanc was my only reasoning that I put.
Yeah, I'm excited for that Kentucky accent to come back.
It's really fun, and I also love that a movie like this can have the hype around it and everyone be excited, and also not give any details. Like I think we're within a few months of this movie being out. Obviously less than half a year, but. We don't know anything, right? Like the plot line on IMDb says famed Southern detective Benoit Blanc travels to Greece for his latest case, and that's all we know.
Yep.
And I wish they would leave it at that, but they won't. They'll put a trailer out. But
yeah, I mean, I think that something came out the other day where it was like character descriptions. So I kind of know like a couple characters. Like I know Dave Bautista is like a famous YouTuber apparently.
Okay.
So just like little stuff like that, I think you could probably find more information on. But I think it's all being kept intentionally vague. Cool, that's great. Yeah. I don't need to know anything about it. If the cast is half as charming as they all look and as they were in the first film, then we're in for a treat.
Yeah, totally. I'm in.
All right, what about you, sir? Last one, most anticipated.
Well, I didn't rank them necessarily. But this is my more serious one because I did Clerks 3 and Weird Al biopic. But I think this movie kind of sounds like the opposite of Clerks 3 based on the title alone. And that is Sarah Polley's Women Talking.
Ooh, okay. Sarah Polley has directed 2 extremely sad movies that I've seen. So I am scared of her movies.
I know. I can think of one, but I don't know if
Away From Her, right?
Yeah, Away From Her is the one that I've seen and was extremely sad. And then
Take This Waltz with Seth Rogen and Michelle Williams was.
Oh yeah, that's right. I haven't seen that one, but it's not. I wanted to.
It's a punch in the heart.
Wow. Okay. Well, then this probably will be too. I don't know if you're familiar with this movie or what it's about.
No, other than women talking.
Yeah. So the cast, just a few of the names on here: Rooney Mara, Claire Foy, Jessie Buckley.
All right. Hey.
So. Already off to a good start.
Yeah.
But what I know about it is it's about a group of women who live in a religious colony. Okay. And they are given a choice between forgiving the men, a group of men, I guess, who have sexually assaulted them, or some of them. And if they don't forgive them, they are excommunicated from the colony and therefore excommunicated from the religion, and basically saying they're not going to go to heaven, right?
Right. Well,
so it's about them, I think, talking through together, trying to figure out what they're going to do.
Interesting.
And that sounds a little brutal, probably.
But it sounds very frustrating and anger-inducing, but I'm sure it'll be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not much like fun stuff to talk about with it, but
no.
I mean, I think the cast looks incredible. I think Frances McDormand is also in it. I think I saw her name on the list. So it's just like kind of a stacked cast. Like you said, Sarah Polley has made some like successfully moving movies. So
sure,
I think it's going to be really great.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Runner up, I was going to put Halloween Ends, but after Halloween Kills, my enthusiasm is waned slightly, but I'm still hopeful that Halloween Ends is good.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm looking forward to that in a hopeful way as well.
Yeah, like please be better than the last one. More like the start of this little trilogy.
Yeah, hopefully so. My runner-up was Triangle of Sadness, which I'm looking forward to because it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes this year.
Same,
but
yeah.
I don't know what the movie's about, and it seems so bizarre that I don't even want to look up a trailer or anything about what it's about. So like I know very little about it, so like, I don't think I could talk about it in an interesting way.
Sure. I will say that all of this controversy around Don't Worry Darling has made me want to see that more.
Yeah. I wish I wish I heard better things about it.
Yeah.
Because I think it did look interesting based on the first trailer that I saw, but
Yeah.
you know, the drama is definitely making it more interesting.
It looked like a big budget, like the type of movie that very rarely gets made because it's not part of like any kind of franchise, you know, but you could tell they really spent money on it.
Yeah. It kind of looked to me, if I'm looking at it a little cynically, it looked to me like, hey, Get Out was really cool. And like this weird sort of like bizarre.
Yeah. Like Stepford Wives / Get Out.
Yeah. And it's kind of seemed like going for that vibe, maybe a little too intentionally, but we will see.
Yeah. But instead of that social issue tackled in Get Out, or those many social issues, it seems to be about the patriarchy.
Yeah. Which is a thing I'm down to tackle.
Sure. Yeah. I just wish it was apparently better. But anyway, I'm still excited based on all this crazy drama around it.
I know. And that's what our intro bit was about.
Yeah.
We never explained
I'm sure
it,
people who knew already knew. But
yeah. If you knew, you knew. And if you didn't, now you do.
All right. Anything else you want to mention just before we get into the main event?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, cool. All right. With that, I think we should move into our feature review for Baz Luhrmann's Elvis, starting now.
I wish to promote you, Mr. Presley. Are you ready to fly?
I'm ready. Ready to fly.
Tomorrow, all of America will be talking about Elvis Presley.
Where's it done up to move around so much during the takes?
I can't move, I can't sing. Some people want to put me in jail the way I was moving.
They might put me in jail for walking across the street, but you're a famous white boy.
The way you sing is God-given, so there can't be nothing wrong with it.
Senator Kennedy has been shot. Martin Luther King has been shot to death in Memphis.
That's all right for you.
Tragedy, but it has nothing to do with us.
It has everything to do with us.
All right. As always with our newer films, we will be doing a spoiler-free section up front. So we're going to give our general thoughts without spoiling any major things. So if you have not seen Elvis yet, you can continue listening. We'll give you a warning. We'll play a little bumper so that you have plenty of time to pause the podcast, go watch Elvis, come back and finish listening.
That's right. So Elvis was directed by Baz Luhrmann. It stars Austin Butler, Tom Hanks, and Olivia de Jong. The IMDb synopsis says, the life of American music icon Elvis Presley from his childhood to becoming a rock star and movie star in the 1950s while maintaining a complex relationship with his manager, Colonel Tom Parker.
Yeah, accurate.
Yeah, that's what this movie is about.
I could have probably told you that before seeing the trailer or the movie. Just knowing it was
here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. I'm not going to lie. I had no idea who Colonel Tom Parker was before I saw this movie.
Yeah, I guess I couldn't have told you his name, but I knew that he did not have a great relationship with his manager and whatnot.
Yeah, see, I didn't even know that. I'm ashamed to say this movie taught me a lot about Elvis I did not know. Obviously, I take it with a grain of salt because it's a biopic. But
yeah,
I've always been a fan of Elvis's music.
Yeah,
never really looked into the man, the myth, the legend himself. Because I just don't really do that with people until a biopic tells me to, you know?
Yeah. I do kind of feel the same. I don't have much interest in biographies or, you know, learning about
the artist.
Yeah, like where someone came from or what they did. Like I'm more interested, like if a book exists about, you know, what the thought behind something was, or like a specific section of their time, like, or like I would do like a behind the scenes of like Elvis recording some album.
Sure, like I would like the artist to talk about their art.
Yeah,
but like I don't know. It seems like whether it's an actor, director, musician, rock band, whatever, you know, it's probably not a good idea to look up to these people as like heroes or like people to emulate. You know,
yeah. Maybe it's a thing of like willful ignorance about them. Like I don't want to know, you know.
Yeah, don't taint
funny.
your art. Just let me enjoy it. With all like, I assume you're a person who did crappy things. You know, we all do. That sounds like people, you know.
Yeah. Well, on that note, do you want to kick us off, or do you want me to start?
Yeah, okay. I could kick us off.
Okay.
So I actually saw this film in theaters back whenever it was in theaters, and all cards on the table. We know we're doing this late, and the movie has been out, but we wanted to catch up with some of the stuff we missed earlier in the year, and this is something that we could watch from the convenience of our homes. So
True.
I didn't rewatch this film, so it's been a minute since I've seen it. I did read up on it though, and kind of refresh myself on like the order of events, the plot summary and everything. But if I get something wrong, forgive me. So this movie was one that I was not looking forward to. I don't like biopics traditionally. Rocket Man, okay. Bohemian Rhapsody, bad.
Yeah.
Walk the Line. I don't remember how that movie is, to be honest with you, but whatever. They're all the same. They all have the same structure to them, and they all seem sort of hand wavy and a little bit more forgiving at times to the artist. So it's all puff pieces basically. Anyway, I found myself completely uninterested in this movie until the first trailer hit, and I watched it, and it was the teaser. It was the scene where he goes out there and he kind of gyrates his hips for the first time. And you see the women like scream, right? For like the first girl that screams. And then it's that whole clip up until it zooms in on Tom Hanks's face. And he's like, I was going to make myself rich or whatever with this guy. And that was the teaser essentially. And it was so outrageous, this teaser, and so goofy and over the top, that I couldn't help but admire the Baz Luhrmann of it all.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's just shamelessly flashy and goofy and busy and over the top and ridiculous. But honestly, the fact that Baz Luhrmann made this crazy, wacky, like 3-hour montage of a movie, I think he injected more life and more interesting angles into this biopic than would have otherwise existed if we would have gotten another Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right. Do you mean literal camera angles, or do you mean just like story character angles, or both?
I guess both. I meant it as like camera. I think Baz Luhrmann is a showman, and he can take an otherwise just generic biopic, and I don't want to say elevate it to something more, but I think that's what he kind of did with this movie. Like, it's not a movie that I love. It's not a movie that I want to watch again, but it moves at such a brisk pace and with such enthusiasm, with its subject matter, that it's a little fun. It's infectious. I think it's aware of what it is, and it's directed in such a way to where it's exhausting at times because it won't slow down, and the whole thing seems like a montage. But that said, it keeps up a pace, and once you learn to adapt to that Baz Luhrmann pace, I think it's rewarding. I think it's a fun time at the movies. And I guess that's all I'm really going to say. Like I said, I'm not enthusiastic. I don't know that I'll be watching it again, but I was not bored while I watched it the first time. And Baz Luhrmann is a mixed bag, but he is what he is, and he's original, and he's doing his own thing, and he's doing it in a way that no one else is even attempting to do it. So, yeah, why not? The movie won me over about 30 minutes in, and I had a pleasant time with this movie. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to echo everything you said, but I pretty much have a similar feeling towards biopics and similar feelings towards this movie. I think the best thing about it is the Baz Luhrmann-ness of it.
Yeah.
Just kind of being awed by the pace of the editing and the interesting camera angles that, a lot of time it feels a bit more like epic Hollywood, in the same way that, Spielberg's West Side Story felt like it captured that sort of epic sweeping camera ness of the old musicals and old Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I mean, that fits for this time period too, but I think it's something that he just generally kind of does, and
Baz Luhrmann doesn't know how to not go hard.
yeah, but the style and the saturation, like just the color of the movie too, was just, it's hard to be bored. I do think
Yeah.
the movie,
You're
I do
always
think the
being
movie
shown
kinda,
something. Yeah.
Yeah, the movie kind of drags towards the end for me. Like, I think it gets a little much after about the 2-hour mark. I kind of found myself waiting, like, okay, how much longer till this is over, But up until then, I agree, like the pacing kind of hooked me in. It just wore thin on me towards the end of the movie, the last 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah. How long is this movie?
It's about 2 hours and 46 minutes, I think.
Okay.
2 hours and 39 minutes. I was
Yeah.
off by 7.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. It's an exhausting experience by the end. But I was pretty interested during the last 40 minutes or so, I think, because that was where I was learning the most new information about Elvis,
Right.
I was like, oh, I didn't realize it got this bad. And this is why, he never left North America, et cetera, et cetera. So I was interested, but I guess I think the Baz Luhrmann-ness, hooked me into the script, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing about it is it's so well made, and it's made with such love and such dynamics that I can't fault the movie. And I think the worst parts about the movie are the worst parts of any biopic, you know? The performances are generally pretty good. I think the worst one is Tom Hanks, because
I enjoyed Tom Hanks in this movie. He's going
like
for it, man.
It is. It's
When's
just
the
so
last time you saw
distracting.
Tom Hanks step outside of his comfort zone and do something like that?
I mean, okay, that's a fair point, right? He is doing something different and being pretty evil.
Yeah. I mean, he's doing another goofy accent in Pinocchio coming out soon, but...
Yeah. I just found it so distracting in a movie full of people who blend into their roles and become who they are. Tom Hanks never does for me.
Sure. That's fair.
Well, but I understand, like, I enjoy seeing him doing something different and enjoy seeing him be so villainous.
Yeah. Like the way, like, I don't know, it's like almost like his character was like that Jack Nicholson meme from Anger Management where he's like shaking his head and smiling. You know what I mean? Like nodding his head yes, like a really creepy way. Like I feel like that was like his character personified. I don't know. You mentioned the performances. I think we shouldn't go any further without really giving credit where credit's due. Austin Butler is a star in this movie, man. He's very talented, very watchable. He doesn't really look like Elvis to me, but within like 10 minutes, I bought it.
Yeah, I buy into it. I'm kind of a strong believer of the idea that it's not just like good casting for a biopic because they look like the person. Like that's kind of like the bottom of my list over like what makes a good biopic.
Sure.
Or good casting. It's like, is the performance there? And I think it is. Like, I think he perfectly captures just this sort of overwhelming charisma and energy. Like I was, I don't know. I was kind of floored by just the energy that he puts in. It's a bit like, I don't know if you've ever gone back and watched like old clips of Chris Farley.
Yeah. That dude gave like 150% to every skit and movie and role that he did.
Yeah, I felt the same thing watching some of the scenes of him performing.
Yeah, because like Austin Butler is going up there and he's literally like physically gyrating around, probably more so than Elvis actually did. Like he is just like arching his back and jutting his hips out, and it's like, good Lord, that like hurts my knees and back just like watching him wiggle around. And like, I don't know, and I love the sequence whenever he actually first starts to like, quote, wiggle, and you see that one girl in the audience just like scream without meaning to.
Yeah.
She didn't even know she was going to do that.
Yeah.
And just like the kinetic energy of that scene of like one girl screams and then like covers her mouth like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And then another girl's like, no, I get it. And then the screams, and then like the dudes in the audience like crossing their arms and getting like annoyed that the girls are having this reaction. It's just like, I don't know. It's completely over the top and ridiculous. But
that is probably my favorite section because of that. Like, I like how over the top that is.
Yeah, and that the thing is, we just accept it, because even if it's not realistic, which it may be, that's always the legend of Elvis, right? Like, you always heard about that. Like, he would gyrate around and it was considered really like vulgar and sexual. And, you know, growing up in the 90s, I was always like, come on, that's stupid. But to like watch it unfold and like as it's portrayed in this movie, it's just interesting and funny, and you kind of get it, you know? So, overall, do you want to get into spoilers? Because I don't really know where we can go in this movie conversation without getting into spoilers. Do you want to do that, or do you have anything else to say?
No, I don't think we have anything else to say in terms of non-spoilers. So
I'm sitting at 3 or 3.5 stars. I can't remember which. It's one of the more entertaining biopics that I have seen in recent years. Although that's not exactly a like glowing recommendation or endorsement. Yeah,
I'm at 3 out of 5. I think because I got a little bit more, you know, over it, kind of ready for it to end, and feeling a little bit sloggy towards the end than you did. It's maybe kind of the difference, but it sounds like we're pretty much on the same page other than that.
Sure, yeah. Okay, all right, so spoilers for Elvis starting now.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Any more cigarettes you got up there? I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
All right, so I may be late to the party here, and I'm sure I am. If anyone who has any knowledge of Elvis's career is listening to this, I'm sure this is laughable to me, for me to even bring this up. But I had no idea that during the time that Elvis was making all those movies, that he wasn't also doing music as well. Like, I didn't realize that there was like a time period, a huge chunk of time where Elvis wasn't the musician Elvis anymore. He was the actor Elvis.
Right.
And so I didn't realize that the 68 comeback special was a real legitimate comeback special.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think I did just because, like, the name of it. I don't know that I realized that it was
I didn't realize that's what it was called until after this. I didn't even know that song that he plays. Like, If I Could Dream.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, after this movie, I got done watching it, I added that song to one of my Spotify playlists, and that song's really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not one that I'm familiar
with all like the Martin Luther King imagery in the lyrics and all that stuff. Like, I don't know, the movie made me really appreciate that, the gospel aspect and like the social issues Elvis aspect of him that I didn't realize existed before. I mean, I guess he wrote In the Ghetto, so I guess I could have realized that he was a forward-thinking progressive guy, but it was cool that he did, you know, other stuff too. And like, as they call them in the movie, he wrote like a protest song, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that we get the sort of stuff going on at the time period and how that sort of plays into later on in the film, not to jump too far ahead, but where he's like worried about death threats and like kind of paranoid in his hotel room, which is, you know, some of that at Colonel Tom Parker's doing, I think, manipulating him.
Sure. Yeah.
But just, I guess one of the things I never considered was him being around during the time of Martin Luther King being killed and Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also, you know, as someone who didn't really, like, I always knew that he grew up in Tupelo, just because I think that the town is so legendary because of that's where Elvis is from, you know? Mm-hmm. But I didn't realize that Tupelo was like largely not white. Right. And I didn't realize that he grew up in that environment. Like, you always hear the term that like Elvis stole, you know, stole his music gig, like stole the style and all that stuff. And that may be true, but I have a feeling it's closer to what you see in this movie, which is that like he grew up around it and knew it was good.
Yeah.
and just didn't know how to be anything else, you know? And so that aspect of like, just like being of the times and being in his specific environment kind of gave him the way to try and like bridge some of that gap, you know? And at least that's the way it's portrayed in the movie. And I realize that might be a little false, but
sure.
I enjoyed that aspect of it. I guess that's something I never thought about.
I really liked that scene of him as a kid. As much as one of the things about biopics that I don't like is just following someone from early life to death.
Yeah.
I think it's like the most boring formula for a biopic.
Sure.
But seeing those scenes when he was a kid and them kind of watching, you know, the sexual dancing and the guy performing, and then him like literally walking over to the tent and like hearing the gospel music and be attracted by that as well. And, you know, it is a bit over the top, and we're combining, you know, kind of having this literal representation of how the two things he was interested in kind of fused together into what he became.
Right.
That scene was so well shot, and like the energy of the gospel music scene, like under the tent and the two people dancing in the little shack. Like, I'm not sure I've seen gospel music or that sort of energy of those, the sort of like early church congregation under a tent singing and moving and fainting and all that stuff. I'm not sure I've seen that captured quite so contagiously.
Yeah, usually whenever those things are in movies, I think to myself, this is really ridiculous and all of these people should be embarrassed. But this movie kind of like adds like an element of like, oh, when people are like going in tongues and like moving their bodies around, it's like, it's a release, you know, it's like it's an art. Mm-hmm. It's like it's a celebration, you know? And I think like even in other movies where like, I'm trying to think of like The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, there was something kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
And even then I didn't have such like a charitable reading of this kind of like gathering, right? And this movie kind of like shows you of like what like a little kid who takes like the right lessons from it, like gospel and like singing about like your love of God and celebrating it in that way is like it's an age-old tradition that has been passed down from generation to generation for a reason, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. I really enjoyed that element of it. I also enjoyed the actor who played the father.
Mm-hmm. Richard Roxburgh. Vernon, that was his father?
Yeah, and I don't know, like just kind of like what a bum he's portrayed to be in this movie. You know, just like kind of what a weak, crappy guy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I felt so bad later in the movie whenever he just didn't know what to do, and they kind of turned to his dad, and his dad's just like, I guess Elvis was. It was when he was like passed out, on the way to the show, and, like in the ice bucket. But they kind of turned to him, and it's like so clearly take him to a hospital, and he's just so timid and weak. About it. And I was like, oh,
doesn't want to be a squeaky wheel.
Yeah, it's so tragic.
Yeah. You know, I didn't realize that, my girlfriend told me this. I didn't realize that when Elvis died, which is not covered in this movie. I mean, it's mentioned, but like
it's covered via
shown.
Text, I think.
Yeah. But I didn't realize that he had 4 weeks of like constipation backed up, like of stuff that he had to get out.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what a horrible, miserable last couple of years this guy must have had. Just being like backed up and sick and fatigued and like obese and just being pumped full of pills at your manager's request.
Yeah.
It just sucks, you know? It's like, it's a sad end to like an otherwise pretty enjoyable legacy, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I think just from a movie perspective, that's just where the Tom Hanks-ness of it, like, while I enjoy watching him do it to an extent, it's hard to separate it and like really see that as someone other than Tom Hanks, you know? And I get that, like, that's how a movie like this gets made, you know?
Yeah. Tom Hanks was I think the only big star.
Yeah, I think the only recognizable person from it, other than Tom Hanks, was Cody Smith McPhee, who is really not a household name.
Yeah.
So just only because of Power of the Dog, I think, being
Right.
so great.
And most of the people seeing this movie probably didn't see that one.
Right. So you have just a lot of people that can just hide because we don't know who they are. And it just bums me out because I think that's just a thing that kept me from fully just diving in to the world in the movie, because everything else is so like well made and so easy to just slip into the rhythm of the movie.
Well, I don't think you're alone in that. I've heard a lot of complaints about this performance from Tom Hanks just does not work for some people.
Yeah. I'm not even sure it's the performance. You know what I mean?
It's just him being Tom Hanks. Yeah.
Just him. It's difficult.
Well, there comes a certain point where you're too big, and that like it's very rare that you blend in anymore. You know what I mean? It's like Christopher Walken. When's the last time that guy blended into a role? You know, can he even do that anymore? I doubt it.
Yeah.
You know what
definitely.
I mean? Like, I think you just get you get so big. And maybe part of it is that Tom Hanks is so used to being like the straight man that we can't not see the over-the-topness of his performance. I don't know.
Right.
Like, we know what Tom Hanks is actually like, you know?
Mm-hmm. And he's likable.
Yeah. He's not like this.
Yeah. Another thing that I remember being a big thing around the time the movie coming out was Austin Butler doing these sort of press things, like being on talk shows, and I remember people were like, he's still doing the Elvis accent and the Elvis voice, like in interviews and stuff, and it seemed like, I don't know if that's just him.
Yeah, I don't know anything about him,
but like watching the movie, I was kind of like, if he did get stuck in that accent, I understand, because this movie looks like it probably took forever to shoot with all the camera angles and just how much this scene moves along. You know, like there were times where I thought back to listening to Edgar Wright do the director's commentary on Scott Pilgrim, where he was like, our goal with this movie was to never repeat a camera angle.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this movie isn't quite like that. It's more so when he gets to performances, there's a lot of camera repetition. But a lot of the other times I just felt like rarely do we get a scene that's like a couple minutes of like cutting back and forth between two angles. So the amount of time that I think it took to shoot this movie, and even some of the montage shots where, you know, they had to do a whole setup and a whole performance, that like sort of thing to get this like 0.5 second shot that's 1/3 of the screen.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think if you have ever edited anything before, or if you've ever shot anything before, or even if you just know what that process is like, what I was thinking of repeatedly throughout this movie was like, they didn't have to go this hard for this section, you know, because like every section is directed and poured over. And if that's not your thing, and that's not like, and if that's too exhausting for you, I get it. A lot of people don't like Baz Luhrmann, but what I could not help but think was like, did we need 5 angles for this? You know what I mean? And like, those take time and hours, and you're paying people hourly to set this stuff up. So like, you don't need a Dutch zoom, and you don't need a pan, and you don't need like a wide snap zoom, you know, but like every like movement of the camera, every angle you could tell was like storyboarded. And he's like, how can I put as much energy into this as possible? And to film that would just be so much more time consuming than if you just did like a regular camera setup and regular coverage that most movies do, you know?
Yeah. I think excess is a good word for Baz Luhrmann.
Sure.
You know? Yeah. And you know what I was thinking of too, just with like the musical aspect of this movie, is I would really like to see him do something like, do you remember the movie 9? The 8.5 musical that was it Rob Marshall?
Yes.
Yeah,
and
that
Daniel
he did.
Day-Lewis. Yeah.
Man, something crazy like that. And I guess he kind of did with like Moulin Rouge, right?
Yeah, I was about to say Moulin Rouge is a big movie.
I kind of want to see that now, though, because I feel like from a technological standpoint, the advances that we made. It seemed like he could do a lot more in this movie than he did for Moulin Rouge, or at least a lot more like successfully.
Yeah, now we got drones and better CGI, and who knows what he can do.
I want to see something like really surreal and wild like that. Because this, I mean, did you ever get, like, I get this sort of love letter vibe to Elvis and the things that he does with like how over the top it is. But like, there were several times where the movie kind of walks this line of being a bit grotesque, and not just in like Tom Hanks's character, who is grotesque, but like the way that his mom like always had these crazy like dark shadows in her eyes, even like earlier in the film, and even just how tan Austin Butler is by the end of the movie.
Yeah. Dude, Elvis looked
sweaty.
He was like, like sweaty and super tan and with like really big, thick sideburns.
Yeah. Like it just almost felt like, and like some of the caricature, borderline grotesqueness that Fellini can have sometimes to me.
Okay. Yeah. No, I completely see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would love to see him dive back into that. And I guess I'm just thinking of more like he did like Australia, and then The Great Gatsby, and now this, which are a little more grounded.
What is your opinion on The Great Gatsby?
I never saw it.
Okay.
I just saw the trailer a bunch.
Okay. All right.
I need to watch it, though. Like, this did make me want to go back and watch it
I've always thought The Great Gatsby is better than people give it credit for.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go watch it then.
But that said, I have also never seen the Robert Redford Great Gatsby, and I never finished the book. So,
yeah, I've read the book, and I always liked the book.
Yeah. But that said, Australia, hate that movie.
Yeah, I don't remember it fondly.
Yeah, so I'm not going to sit here and just like gush over Baz Luhrmann all day, but it did make me want to see The Great Gatsby again. It makes me kind of want to maybe check out Moulin Rouge again.
Yeah.
You know, like this guy's a visionary. Like, for better or worse or whatever, you know, the man just exudes confidence and style, and maybe not always substance, but definitely always style.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, but I think I'm tapped out on Elvis. Yeah. I think I was more generous to this movie in this review than I thought I would be months ago when I left the theater. If this review were to ever have happened. I didn't realize that I would be going to the wall for it so hard, but you know what? If you're going to watch a biopic, this is about as good as and creative as you could get. Yeah.
And you said, I think Rocket Man was okay. So do you like this one better than Rocket Man?
Yeah, but I'm going to be real with you. Elvis has more good songs than Elton John does, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. I do also like this movie more than Rocket Man, but I also did not quite get the hype around Rocket Man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Rocket Man fan, but I think it was a better biopic than like Bohemian Rhapsody had. So that's kind of where my bar was over the last recent years. But
yeah, I think maybe that's where a lot of the hype comes from, is because
it's better than that last movie.
Yeah, because everyone saw Bohemian Rhapsody and then we're like, well, compared to this, Rocket Man is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I prefer the Harlan Williams Disney Rocket Man about the guy going to space.
Me too. I still laugh every time I think of the scene where he pulls up to NASA and he tries to get out of his Jeep, and like he's like 3 inches from another car, and he's like trying to open his door real fast. And then he goes to the other side to do the same thing.
Yeah, he opened it like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
Why would it work?
Yeah, like he can see the other car. Anyway. Underrated movie, Rocket Man.
Yeah, we'll review that another day when it gets on Criterion, I'm sure.
Sweet.
But yeah, for now, I think that does it for this episode, right?
Yeah, it does it for me.
Cool. And just in time, because I don't know if you can hear this, but it is starting to storm.
Oh, really? It's thunder. Just in time because I have to go to the bathroom, so that's what I was thinking.
Cool. All right, well, we'll get out of here. Thank you, listeners, so much for listening. Thanks, Jake Wagner-Russ, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bobscotch.
All right, stay tuned to this feed, subscribe, all that stuff. Our next episode should be a casually Criterion for Akira Kurosawa's High and Low.
All right, well, we'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.
Elvis has left the building.